The Cold War was not only a battle of weapons and armies, it was a war of minds. Invisible, silent, yet extremely powerful. At the center of this hidden war stood one organization, the KGB. The KGB did not only collect intelligence, it reshaped people. It broke identities, rebuilt personalities, and engineered psychological endurance. To understand the KGB's power, we must look at its roots. Born from the Cheka, it was designed not just for security, but as the sword and shield of the party, enforcing ideological purity through fear. The psychological foundation was laid early. Total loyalty was the only way to survive. This created a culture where every word and thought was monitored, even within the organization itself. One of the most extreme programs involved the illegals, spies sent abroad, with no diplomatic cover. These individuals had to live for decades under a stolen identity, never speaking their native tongue. Imagine the mental strain of waking up every day as someone else, knowing that a single slip of the tongue in your sleep could mean death or life in a Siberian gulag. The KGB also mastered the art of mice, miniature microphones, and hidden cameras. The goal wasn't just to hear secrets, but to make the target feel they were never truly alone, breaking their will. Psychological torture often replaced physical force. The conveyor was a method of continuous interrogation by rotating teams, depriving the subject of sleep until their minds simply fractured. In the 1970s, the KGB expanded its influence into the West, using active measures. This involved planting false stories in foreign newspapers to sow discord and confusion among enemy populations. They studied the psychology of entire nations, identifying social fault lines, race, religion, politics, and pushing them until the society began to tear itself apart from within. The KGB's psychological reach extended far beyond its own borders. Through the use of co-optees, ordinary citizens in foreign countries who were subtly manipulated into serving Soviet interests without even knowing it. They utilized the MICE acronym for recruitment, money, ideology, compromise, and ego. By identifying which of these four psychological levers moved an individual, the KGB could turn almost anyone into an asset. Compromised, or compromat, was perhaps their most feared tool. They would create elaborate honey traps or stage incriminating scenarios to shatter a target's reputation, leaving them with no choice but to cooperate. The psychological toll on the handlers themselves was also immense. They had to maintain a facade of friendship with their targets while systematically destroying their lives, leading to high rates of alcoholism and mental breakdown within the KGB ranks. In the domestic sphere, the KGB used psychiatric terror. Political dissidents were diagnosed with sluggish schizophrenia, a fabricated mental illness, and forcibly committed to mental hospitals to silence them. This was the ultimate psychological weapon. If you disagreed with the state, you weren't a hero or a rebel. You were simply insane. This stripped the dissident of their agency and their message. The Z-folder system was another method of control. It was a psychological profile of every high-ranking official, detailing every vice and secret, ensuring that even the leaders lived in a state of perpetual anxiety. Even after the fall of the Soviet Union, the psychological legacy of the KGB remains. The techniques of disinformation and mental manipulation have evolved into the digital age, proving that the war for the mind never truly ends. Becoming a spy was not about secrecy, it was about mental transformation. In this documentary, we examine the psychological methods used by the KGB and how spies were trained. 1. Selection. Not everyone could become a spy. The most critical phase for the KGB was selection. They did not simply choose intelligent people. They needed individuals who could hide emotions, endure long-term isolation, stay calm under extreme stress, live a double life. Candidates were monitored for months. Their fears, weaknesses, and even childhood traumas were analyzed. To the KGB, a human being was a profile, and every profile could be shaped. 2. Identity breakdown. This was the harshest phase of spy training. The KGB dismantled the candidate's previous identity, a process sometimes called psychological reset. Methods included long-term isolation, sleep deprivation, continuous interrogation, and pressure, mixing real and false information. The goal was simple. The old identity had to collapse, because as long as the old self remained, the spy could never fully become the role. 3. Building a new identity. Once the old identity was broken, a new one was constructed. Spies were given a new name, a new past, a new life story, new behavior patterns. This transformation was so deep that some began to lose connection with their real identity. For the KGB, the perfect spy was not someone who acted, but someone who became the role. 4. Emotional control. The greatest danger for a spy is emotion. KGB training focused on hiding fear, lying naturally, controlling facial expressions, making decisions under pressure. Realistic simulations were used. Fake arrests, staged threats, even false death notifications. The objective was to make the mind familiar with panic, because a mind that knows panic does not panic. 5. The double life syndrome. Many spies lived under false identities for years. This often led to psychological fragmentation. Some former agents later said, "The hardest part is not lying. The hardest part is remembering the truth." Some could never return to normal life because they had become two different people. 6. Manipulation and reading people. KGB spies did not only hide, they influenced. They were trained to detect human weaknesses, build trust strategically, apply psychological influence, manipulate slowly and subtly. A skilled spy could achieve results without using force, because the most powerful weapon is the human mind. 7. Fear conditioning. One of the strongest KGB techniques was fear control. Candidates were exposed to threat simulations, isolation environments, uncertainty and unpredictability. Over time, the brain adapted to fear, and once fear becomes familiar, it becomes controllable. 8. The silent battlefield. Psychological warfare. KGB spies did more than gather intelligence. They spread disinformation, influenced societies, manipulated decision-makers, destabilized enemy psychology. This was an invisible war. No bullets, no noise, yet enormous impact. 9. Life after being a spy. The hardest phase often began after the mission ended. Many former spies experienced paranoia, identity, confusion, difficulty returning to normal life, constant fear of being watched. Because psychological war does not end on the battlefield. It continues inside the mind. Conclusion. The KGB did not simply train spies. It transformed people. This system demonstrated one truth. The mind can be more powerful than any weapon. The Cold War ended, but psychological warfare never truly disappeared. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell button to be notified of updates.